My name is Rose Lane. I'm a member of the Transition Committee, and I attend All Saints Church in Indianapolis. It's my pleasure to introduce Dina Van Klaveren and her husband, David Stimler. They come to us from Glenwood, Maryland, St. Andrew's Parish there.
First of all, it is really good to be with you tonight and to have this time with you. And it's been an honor and a joy for Dave and I to be here among you in this diocese. So thank you for your hospitality. Hoosier hospitality. It's been great. Thank you.
Right. The first question is, the Diocese of Indianapolis is comprised of many small parishes, most of them outside metropolitan Indianapolis. How have you built community across geographic, economic, and social differences, and how will this experience help you build community in the diocese?
So since there are so many small parishes, and I don't know you, or many of you, tell me, who here is from a small congregation? Who would consider the congregation they worship in each week to be small? Okay, that's great. That just helps me know where the small congregations are. I have a new special love for small congregations because my mother broke her hip and fell in the spring, and she lives in Payson, Arizona, which is really far from Glenwood, Maryland. And I knew that her small congregation was bringing casseroles and visiting her and keeping her busy and making sure she had knitting and crocheting projects in the rehab facility. And they brought her Holy Communion, and they were with her in a way that I could not be with her across the miles. So I have a really special fondness for that kind of congregation, and I love being with them when I visit her and worshiping, where everybody really knows each other, and there's a kind of intimacy in that fellowship. I'm coming up on 8 years at St. Andrew's in Glenwood, Maryland, and in those 8 years, we have done many different things that would qualify as an answer in terms of experiences, building community across various differences. But I have picked just a few to share with you from those 8 years and from some diocesan work. The first one, I wasn't sure it was a good idea, but 3 other clergy friends and myself decided that instead of doing independent vestry retreats that January, we would do it together. So we took 2 urban, 2 suburban, 2 small, 2 larger, 2 that had interims because they were in a transition process, and 2 with longer rectorates like my own, to be together out at Claggett, which is our diocesan camp and conference center. And I wasn't sure we'd have a lot to talk about or if it would be rich enough and similar between experiences. It was one of the best retreats I've ever been to. The treasurers sat together for lunch and really could talk with nobody else listening about what it was like to be a treasurer. The wardens did the same. There was great partnership in ministry that has borne some lasting fruit in ministry projects ongoing. So that kind of building community across differences, regional and economic and so forth, was really powerful. I have also intentionally staffed our parish in the best way that I can, given our limited resources. I have invited a millennial to be our theologian in residence. He's a PhD student at University of Virginia and lives with his wife in the DC area. And Scott is a terrific addition to the congregation, preaching and teaching from time to time. So that crosses some generational differences. And a few years ago, I made a very good friend named Charles, who's a retired priest, and he came on to serve as priest associate, which helps us, again, bridging across the generations because he's 84. And when he started, he was 80. I was 40, and he did all 5 Christmas Eve and Christmas Day services with me without a word of complaint. I mean, he is the most invigorated, retired priest I've ever met, and that's really life-giving. Another life-giving bridging activity has been working with a small urban congregation by the name of Guardian Angel in a part of Baltimore City not far from where Dave and I used to live when he was a pharmacy school student and I worked at the Maryland Institute College of Art for several years. And in that neighborhood, which is quite transitional, that parish has a very important ministry. It's actually a mission. That mission has an important ministry to people seeking jobs, who need help with food and bills and rehab. And we've had this ongoing relationship with them, and they've become our brothers and sisters, and we do ministry together with them. most recently, we've done reading camp with them for 3 summers, and that has been really, really life-giving. So I also was a camp director at our diocesan summer camp for 3 summers, which was so great. And I love working with those college students who are camp counselors and working with young people from really every region of our diocese. And it's a pretty broad diocese, so that's a very crossing over differences kind of place. The fruits of the labor are this. On Easter Sunday, 11:15 service, so the 3rd service, the last one on Easter Sunday, we're back in the historic chapel that we rent, which was built in 1834, and it's got one of these galleries in like these old churches do by us. And a little guy who's got trouble sitting still, whose mom doesn't come to church a lot because of it, is there. And he starts marching up the gallery steps and across past the organ and the choir, and they're kind of protecting him and keeping him safe, and he comes down the stairs here, walks around the congregation, the aisle, up over the altar platform, right? And nobody really, batted an eyelash. They were fine with however he needed to be there on that Easter Sunday, even during the Eucharist. So I think when you cross over differences in one area here, you feel it over here, and everybody's welcome.
How would you use your amplified voice in the church to serve our call to promote justice and the dignity of every human being in the church, in the local community, and in the greater world?
So, of course, the amplified voice is our essential tool in drawing others into the love and good news of Jesus Christ that we experience as faithful people. And so we've got to use it. It's essential that we learn how to use it, and we learn how to use it not only in word, but in deed, and that there's some congruence between our words and our deeds so that that voice is more amplified, right? And it's important to me when we think about having a voice in the public sphere that we are very thoughtful and caring and understand how to nuance it, especially in a highly charged political season. I drive past a lot of parishioner homes on my way to and from church, and I see signs out in front of their houses for both candidates. And so I know that there is diversity of political party in the parish, and I just tell myself it's 50-50, even though it's probably not. Just pretend like it's 50-50. We need to be very careful because that voice out on social media gets quickly amplified, and it is my hope that when we do talk about important issues, we're going for engagement and never shame or shut off of conversation. I really try to interact with folks in a way that's engaging rather than shaming or shutting off. Nonetheless, there is a time when you grab the picket sign because things are just so bad that you get out there and march. And being so close to Washington, D.C. has allowed participation in various marches, which I really enjoy. I love to be out there marching for something I believe in, or carrying a picket sign around fair wages and jobs, which really matters to me. It's also important that community leaders and clergy, especially like myself, keep their egos in check when using the amplified voice. It's kind of nice. You've got the collar on, people are paying attention, they're listening to you. Oh, what will I say next? This is fun. And you can get a little carried away, right? I almost got carried away once, and I want to share that story with you just because it's important to me. This is who I am. I was about to speak to a reporter who called, who wanted to talk with me about a funeral. We had a very scary incident in the Diocese of Maryland, incredibly tragic, where there was a shooting at one of our parishes, and a parish administrator, a clergy person, and the shooter died as a result. It was, maybe you heard it. And my colleague, Mary Marguerite Cohn, passed away as a result, and I didn't know Brenda Brewington, and I didn't know the shooter, Frank. And as clergy colleagues were learning about this, we were at Diocesan Convention in Hunt Valley, Maryland. Folks were going up to the dais and speaking to Bishop Eugene and saying, if you need to have a funeral here at the cathedral or in a larger space, people were offering space so that families could plan, because St. Peter's, where this incident happened, was not available for a long time. And so, knowing the congregation I serve to be generous and forgiving and warm and loving, I went up to Bishop Eugene and offered St. Andrew's for the shooter's family if they wanted to have a funeral there. And the parish was very supportive in that. They were very much understanding that that was our role in caring for this family in this really complicated and tragic time in their lives as well. And so as we got ready to do that, a reporter got wind of it and called me and wanted to talk to me about forgiveness. And boy, did something in my ego stir. I wanted our parish to be famous for being generous, right? I wanted everybody to know what Episcopal churches are like, how loving and caring they can be. And so I was going to talk to this reporter. And it was about 5-10 minutes before the reporter was scheduled to call me back, because I bought some time. I had to think about it, think about what I was going to say, right? And I'm driving down a country road in Virginia to go meet a friend, and I remember very clearly pulling the car over on the side of the road, starting to cry a little bit, and realizing that I had almost broken a very important and privileged pastoral relationship with a family that I have come to love over the years now that I've known them since that funeral. So that amplified voice is one that must be done with great care, and pastoral relationship matters more than the amplified voice in my book. That said, Eugene Sutton, our bishop, took a very good stand. He was very transparent and clear in the wake of the tragic events in which our Bishop Suffragan was driving while intoxicated and texting, which resulted in Thomas Palermo's death. And I could see that the amplified voice was very necessary from the bishop in that time.
As you know, people throughout the diocese were invited to submit questions online that could be drawn from a hat for answering. And Dina has selected, how do you see yourself as pastor to the pastors?
You know, I don't know, you might have had the same question being answered by everyone. Maybe, maybe not. Well, I selected this question because I've been praying the prayer for your search process for so long that I know what you're looking for. You're looking for a faithful pastor who will care for God's people and equip all of you for ministry. That's in this prayer. And since I've been praying that, and since I believe that being a faithful pastoral leader is really at the core of ministry, and certainly my ministry, I wanted to speak to this and give it some time. So to me, a pastor is one who demonstrates great care and guidance for the growth and the flourishing and the fullness of another person, of a group, of a congregation, of a wider community, even of a project or an idea. Sometimes we pastor ideas, right? Or projects that are important to our kingdom work. And so to care for another person is to deeply invest in one another's growth and flourishing. And that's at the heart of ministry for me. Now, we all pastor, not just bishops, not just priests, not just deacons, but all lay people find themselves caring for people as well. It's part of how we are built as human beings. We need that connecting. And so we are all pastors in one way or another. In fact, I look back at the 6 years I spent as an employee at the Maryland Institute College of Art. When I left, I was the associate dean, and that was deeply pastoral work. I was the associate dean of students, art students, and that's a really ripe time of life. And there's a lot of pastoral care that goes on with them from time to time with their parents or faculty members or other staff members. So I would say that we can all think about being pastors. Now, because of the way that my life has been shaped and because of the way that I choose to live and do ministry and guide the communities that I serve, parishioners and colleagues have told me that I am three things. And they're not that glamorous, but I'm going to share them with you anyway because I think they're probably on point. They say that I am reliable, accessible, and kind. Those aren't that shiny. But kindness is really at the heart of everything. There is no reason for us to be in ministry together in any way that is anything but kind to one another. That should be obvious, but we remember it from time to time to our own best interest. I do know how to be firm, and I know how to be clear because I was director of summer camp, as I've mentioned. And when you're loading up canoes and kayaks and putting people in harnesses for zip lines and you're out hiking on a precipice, firm and clear is absolutely required. I also value a pastoral leadership style that is intentional and productive. I come from some hardy, farming Dutch immigrant stock, right? My grandparents immigrated here from the Netherlands, and my father, when he was a child, dairy farmers, right? It's all about hard work and getting out there and doing it. And I think pastoral care, if we are strategic, can be incredibly productive and life-giving, right? We can see results from it. So for that reason, I invest myself in the growth and flourishing of others and in myself and in communities that I serve, and as a result, benefit from these deep and long-lasting relationships with other people and with communities. We have a great pastor that helped prepare Dave and I for marriage. He continues to be my role model as a pastor, Van Gardner, Dean of the Cathedral in Baltimore. I hope he watches this eventually so he can hear the shout out to how faithful he was to us as he prepared us over 4 sessions. He didn't tell us how to be married. He listened and asked us what we were seeking and helped us to design the kind of marriage that would be best for us, right? So I think a good pastor is a listener. One of the things that roots my prayer life and my pastoral relationship with people is every Tuesday morning I flip open the church directory and I have a little Post-it note to remind me of where I was the week before, and I pray a couple of households as I have that second cup of coffee, kids are on the bus, not quite ready to start sermon prep. Really good pastoral leadership, I believe, must be rooted in a deep prayer life, to be praying for one another. So if you called me to be your bishop, I can tell you right now that nothing's going to change in me. I am going to continue wanting to know people, to know all of you, and to be known by you, because that is what fuels the fire of my ministry